It's time for another edition of Dome and Domer.
Hello again, Irish fans. Welcome back to Dome and Domer, the oldest Notre Dame sports podcast on the planet. I'm your host, Mike Sullivan. Joining me, my classmate from the Notre Dame class of 1990 in Dillon Hall, Mike Brammer. So if this is your first time to Dome and Domer, if you're looking for expert analysis on Notre Dame football, this may not be the place for you. But if you want to know what Notre Dame fans just like you are thinking and what our conversation is like, we're passionate. We bleed blue and gold. Stick around for the next 15 or 20 minutes, and I hope you enjoy the conversation. If you do, be sure to like and subscribe Dome and Domer. All right, Bram. Watched the Freeman press conference today. I know you did as well. My impression of it is that this was a masterclass on accountability and leadership. Every time I get a chance to hear Coach Freeman speak, I am more and more confident that we have the right guy leading the program. So let's get into some of the specifics here, but general impressions you had from the press conference.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think the thing about Marcus Freeman is that every time he gets up there to the microphone, he says reassuring things. So I'm a big fan of him in that regard. I think he's dialed in. I think he knows this football team, but every football team is different from year to year. There's no two teams that are the same. And we've got a different dynamic this year with this team. I thought was kind of interesting what he said in that the intensity level is going to pick up even in walkthroughs. He mentioned that. So that tells me that he's going to use this opportunity to lay it on thick with these guys. And that's exactly what you do when you're 0-2. Things have got to change.
Well, that's an interesting point. I caught that as well as I was listening and watching. We're going to improve and elevate our performance in meetings and walkthroughs. That's not what you do when you're 0-2. That's what you do all the time. And he addressed this, right? This is an issue of consistency. And, what you tolerate Monday through Friday is what you see on the field Saturday
That's right.
A point that he made, right? And So that starts with the coaches. And, everybody wants to get on specific coaches and coordinators and all that. But, Freeman, rightfully, as the head coach says, it starts with me and what I allow the coaches to accept, or what the coaches allow accept from the players. That's where consistency comes from. There's an old coaching expression, like either the players, either they become like us or we become like them, and we can't become like them, right? Yeah. The coaches have to lead. They have to set the standard of what's acceptable, even in meetings and walkthroughs. I got goosebumps when I heard him say that.
Yeah, I mean, players are their own worst enemies in that regard when they're trying to coach themselves. So I'm 100% in agreement with you there. The key is that you have to be able to recognize where those things are. And I think every time we listen to Marcus Freeman, he's dialed in. He's got it. He knows exactly what they need to do. And I think that's why he's done what he's done the last couple seasons. You take the NIU loss, and he turned it around from there. You take the losses we had the previous season that were early on, and he turned it around because he recognized what needed to change. And I think we're going to see more of that, the same this year. Now, the problem is that the margin of error is narrow. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Another loss and you're out of the playoffs. You got no chance.
Right. I think there was definitely questions asked of him in that regard, and he does such a good job compared to other big-time coaches in their press conferences, which we'll get to in a minute. He does such a good job of being intentional. Every answer is on message. It's about what is important. Lou Holtz used to say WIN, W-I-N, stands for what's important now. And Freeman, you could hear that in how he answers questions that might take you off topic, might distract your focus, and he just doesn't allow it, right? So, yeah, do we need to go 10-2? How do you win 10 in a row? Not hearing it. It's Purdue, and It's about how we get better this week as a coaching staff and as players, as a program.
Yeah. No, and one other thing that he mentioned that until he said it, I was like, wow. But there were 4 plays that accounted for 200 yards. So 4 plays accounted for almost half of their yardage. And those are things that you look at and say to yourself, okay, what could we have done to prevent that? And that's the area that I think that, again, they're going to focus on that kind of thing. Take 2 of those away, and it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, and I think that it's fixable, right? So he addressed that follow-up question on that topic. Well, why did that happen, right? That's of course the question. And he's like, listen, it wasn't just one thing; it was multiple things, which can be a good news, bad news situation. But he talked about what are the bad habits that we've let go and maybe didn't address it at practice that lead to bad plays turning into explosive plays. Eye discipline, guys not having their eyes in the right place and get fooled by something, right? Or don't recognize something quickly because their eyes are not in the right place. Bad technique, he listed. Schematic execution. We call play and we have a bust on the play call, offensively or defensively. He's talking about the defense in this case. He addressed personnel. Do we have the right people in there that match with what we're asking them to do? And if they can't do what we're asking them to do, let's look, are we asking them to do the right thing? And if we are, maybe we need somebody else. So all these things are being addressed and reviewed. But to your point earlier, yeah, the clock is ticking now. The margin of error isn't great. And so there is urgency to get this stuff fixed.
Yeah, and I think that, he addressed that in terms of just sticking to we're worried about the next game. And that is how you go about your business when you're in that situation. You can't afford any kind of a let up. And they're going to have their hands full at Arkansas. They're going to have their hands full with, I think, an NC State team that's going to be good. Anytime you look at the on the road games,
right.
Those are not gimmies.
NC State's a home game, by the way, but didn't you start following what Coach Freeman's telling you? Focus on Purdue. It's about this week.
No, I know that. I'm just saying that.
I'm kidding you.
We as fans look ahead, and man, there's no guarantees there. And the thing about the scheduling thing that this drives me nuts. Everybody makes comments at the beginning of the season. No, every football team is different. We have no idea at this moment in time how good any of these teams are. It's too early to tell. Now, after the 3rd game, you start to see things emerge. And I think just Arkansas is going to be a tougher opponent than we thought at the beginning of the season. All of that stuff shakes out and all of it plays out over the course of the season. You can't jump the gun at this moment. So it's way too early to get into even the argument of does a 10-2 Notre Dame team deserve? Well, how can you say that right now? It's ridiculous.
Totally agreed. Like, it's not even worth talking about right now. What we need to, the program obviously has got to be fixated on internally control what we control. And that is sorting out issues with whether it's, eye discipline, technique, scheme, personnel, whatever it might be. But, that is what coaching is. It's not, this play call in that moment, new coordinator getting roasted for scheme. But, that was a question that came up in the press conference. Oh, it looks different. This doesn't look like the Notre Dame defense. I thought Freeman handled that beautifully. He's like, well, the output is what you're describing is different, right? The execution, not the structure of the defense, has changed, and we need to figure that out. Now, ultimately, who's responsible for the execution? It's the coaches. And so he addressed that. What we've allowed to go on is maybe what we're seeing on Saturday, and they're got to redouble their efforts to make sure they're teaching it the right way, they're reinforcing the right things, they're making sure they have enough reps at it, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the areas where you could say, yeah, the coaches are responsible, but a little less about scheme and X's and O's.
Yeah, the only other thing that I've kind of scratched my head over a little bit, not in terms of questioning, but just I'm fearful of the last time that we heard rumblings of this, and that was going back to the Charlie Weiss era where they didn't go into contact during practice. Now, I know that it's a tough thing when you're in a 12-game situation, and then you got to go into the playoffs. How do you protect these players? I'm just a little nervous that lack of, let's call it full go on Wednesday's practice or Tuesday's practice is also contributing a little bit to this. I don't know. I don't know if we did that last year. I can't even comment on it. I would
It's it
think we
right.
didn't.
Well, we don't know the particulars. It's worth a conversation. I heard him say the same thing a week or two ago, and we're old school and grew up in an era where it was different in terms of how you approach contact within the season, contact generally. I gotta assume that year over year we're approaching those things the same way, and I'm assuming that team to team generally is approaching those things the same way. It doesn't seem plausible to me that, well, we're the only ones who are monitoring how much contact. That doesn't seem plausible to me. But I heard that, and also I went, yeah, it looks like poor tackling. Is that a result of not being live? There's so much you can do though with tackling without taking guys to the ground to improve technique. Hey, a missed tackle.
Maybe that's what the coaches focus on. Maybe that's some of the stuff that they start looking at. Like, all right, let's change up this drill because we're not getting the technique that we want. Yeah,
you're right. Those are the things they got to look at. The missed tackle on the 86-yard touchdown pass. Yeah, that's just lousy focus on and technique.
Yeah. That's just I'm going to knock this guy over. Yeah, that's all that was. I'm going to knock this guy over. I'm not going to wrap up.
Right.
But I mean, those are the 4 plays that he's talking about. You take a look at those 4 plays, and there's your huge mistake on that 86-yard. All of them had mistakes. All of them had lack of execution. And, if the detail picks up and these guys do increase their level of intensity on the detail, on the execution of what they're asked to do, then I think you're going to see positive results from this. And, granted, it's going to help with a team like Purdue. I mean, Notre Dame should win this game and should win it handily. But that's all depends, right? Now your psyche's involved at 0-2.
Well, okay, so a year ago, heading into Purdue, I was really nervous going into that game because we had just lost to Northern, and so in my mind, if Northern Illinois can beat us at home, we can lose to anybody. And of course, seeing too many games at Ross-Ade Stadium, being closer than they should, I was nervous going into that game. I loved how we came out. I am expecting us to come out in a similar fashion and make Purdue's way better than they were last year, of course, but take out some of our frustration on Purdue. So, we've played 6 games in a row against top 10 opponents, okay, going back to last year. We're 3-3 in those games and close losses, Ohio State game, close-ish. But that's, as Coach said, hey, we're close, we're not close enough. That's not okay, and the consistency and execution is the key. So we talked about some of those broader programmatic types of things the coaches are working on, but let's talk about a few comments Coach Freeman made about specific parts of the team. So question was asked, will you spend time with the defense? That felt like a little bit of a question trying to draw him into the whole conversation around the coordinator. He goes, yeah, maybe. I mean, my job as head coach, do whatever I have to do, wear whatever hat I have to wear to make the team better. So will he spend more time with the defense? Certainly possible. That's his background on, from a football standpoint. He was pleased overall with 2 areas. He liked the Wildcat formation wrinkle that they put in. He thought it was productive, with the notable exception of the 4th down around the middle of the field, where Love got stuffed. It was productive. They did have success with it, and it's just another way to run the football, balance up the numbers, and maybe get your backs more carries. He also was pleased with the progress of the offensive line. So those 2 areas, Mike, really 3 areas. Just give me your thoughts on maybe Freeman spends more time with the defense, but again, that seemed to be a leading question. He didn't say he was. He said, maybe I'll do whatever.
Yeah.
Pleased with the Wildcat. Pleased with the offensive line.
Yeah, he did say that he's more comfortable with the defense, which makes sense. I mean, that's where he comes from. He's a very good defensive coordinator. We all know that. So I think it makes total sense for him to spend time on that side of the ball.
Pause on that for a minute. As we said yesterday, we didn't all know that, being a little sarcastic, after his first game, in 2021. Yeah, we got toasted. Right. Yep. But it took a while to gel. And then that defense became very good. And his track record has always been good. So
yeah, and look, I think there's certain tendencies that defenses carry with them that they're really good at, and that's when defensive coordinators kind of align with that thinking and they know what to call in certain situations because for whatever reason, we're really good at that, whether it be dialed up blitzes on key downs or whatever it might be. A lot of that stuff plays out in the first couple games. That's all part of you just assimilating the team that you've got, what their capabilities are and what their strengths are, and you call to that, right? If we're not a very good team with 6 DBs in there and only one linebacker that really can't cover the middle of the field, then we're not going to call that a lot moving forward, right?
Well, and he did address that in the coordination that needs to happen with the front that you call with the coverage behind it.
Right.
And then layer on top of it the guys you have executing that. And all that, again, we're not there. We're not football experts, but all that seems to be just a little out of sync. And that, I hope, is what they get worked out here as the season unfolds. And again, hopefully against opponents that there's a little more margin for error. I think, to your point, I think games like Boise State and NC State are going to be tough.
Yeah.
But we should be in a better position as we grow and evolve and learn what this team's all about as the schedule softens a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So the other thing that he does is, on the Wildcat, I like the wrinkle. I think it's a good play. I know that certain fans looked at him and was like, what are we doing by putting, CJ Carr out there? We're never going to throw to him. He's just a decoy. He's not doing anything. Well, that is how you execute the Wildcat. You don't bring him off the field and put in, an extra guy that's
a lot of angst over that for no reason.
Yeah, and I just think
does anybody watch football besides Notre Dame 12 times a year? Like, it wasn't a crazy wrinkle.
No, not at all. And the whole point is that CJ Carr stays in the game because you want them to think that you're going to drop back and throw the football. So you've got your defensive alignment and the key players in there that you think are going to defend the pass. And all of a sudden we come out in the Wildcat and now you can't do a substitution because we didn't substitute. So now your strengths have to beat our strengths in that Wildcat formation. And I kind of like it. I think there should be some wrinkles.
I'm sure there will be. He talked about leaning into things that we feel like we got some traction with. He liked the production out of the Wildcat. I'm sure there are other components to that package that we'll see as the season plays out. Jeremiah Love got a career high in carries. I love having the opportunity to get him the ball more, get him more touches. Obviously, it didn't result in the outcome that we wanted, but I think that's a good thing. Jadarian Price is awesome as well. But those two guys are really good. And I like being able to get them the ball more. But success allows you to run more plays, which means you have more opportunities. And, in Miami, I'm sure we would have loved to have done that. But we went 3 and out too many times.
Yeah. And not only that, but there's a couple things that I think reared their ugly head during the game. And that is on first down, we went backwards a couple times. And there were some key drives where we were staring at 3rd and 9 because we had got tackled for loss for like 4 yards. Those are the kinds of things that you just can't have. And part of not having Riley Leonard anymore were those conversions on, 3rd and 4 where you just give it to him twice and we're going to get the first down. That we don't have him anymore, so we can't rely on that, which makes it all the more pressure for us to execute on first down calls. You can't be going backwards on first and second down. You just can't do that.
Way too many negative yardage plays for the offense and not nearly enough for the defense, right? For sure. Again, talking about that's the outcome we didn't like. Why is that? And I have a high level of confidence that they're going to get those things fixed. This is still a really talented team, and the outcome isn't what we wanted. Of course not. But 4 points total in the 2 losses to 2 real good teams that are both ranked in the top 10. So, it's no time to wholesale panic, but you got to get it fixed. No question about it. So another note from a personnel standpoint, our place kicker, Noah Burnett, questionable for Saturday against Purdue. So we'll have to keep an eye on that, and hopefully whatever's going on with him, he's feeling better by game time, but questionable as of today. All right, let's take a little bit of a look around college football more generally. And again, back to like accountability and how you handle the press, how you're messaging. And you got a chance to watch former Notre Dame coach Brian Kelly in a clip from his press conference. Bram, what happened?
Yeah, well, he kind of teed off on the guy. It just goes to show, and to Brian Kelly's credit, I understand his frustration. I mean, you got a guy in the room asking you what's wrong with your offense. You just won 20-10 in a heated SEC rivalry game with Florida, and they're sitting there complaining about you coming away with a W. I get it. I even think the way that the guy framed it was the wrong way. But having said that, you still got to keep your cool, and you can't get in entanglements with reporters, and that's exactly what he did. I mean,
and it's so typical, right? It just in the years that Kelly was here, he just and now that he's at LSU, sometimes he just can't get out of his own way, and he always ends up saying something that comes off the wrong way or is just flat out,
yeah,
kind of a jerky thing to do.
He called the guy out and was like, "It's pathetic. You just asked that question."
Right. I mean, okay,
in a room full of journalist professionals, he's
right. And so, Freeman got asked several
stupid
questions.
He could have easily blown up. Could have easily.
Of course he did. Yeah. Right. He got asked a couple head scratching questions, and he comes back to it's like he knows his answers, and it doesn't matter what the questions is, what the questions are. He's coming back to what he wants to say, and it's about us controlling what we control, not worrying about an uncertain future, and holding ourselves accountable for better performance no matter what. That's what he's going to answer. So he gets a couple goofball questions, and that's what he says.
Yeah, and that's
I don't know why Kelly, a veteran guy, doesn't do that, but he doesn't.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the frustration levels. I think it's pretty obvious that some people are frustrated with Brian Kelly down there in terms of where the program's at the moment, which is not exactly fair. I mean, that is the one problem that we see in today's world that we live in. A lot of times you've got reporters that are trying to make a name for themselves. They're trying to come up with that. Let me pull this guy, like you just mentioned, pulling Freeman into a trap and get him to come unglued. You want to be that guy that asks that question instead of just asking questions that matter to people, that you're doing your job to report on the game and get to answers that help understand what happened.
I have no idea what this guy's motivation was. I'm not going to put the blame on him. It's Kelly's job to act as a professional and not
just
lose
to let it go. Just
period.
To dismiss it and be
that
like,
guy's
hey,
doing
man,
his
we won
job.
the football game. We'll worry about running the football better.
Right. And there was an opportunity for him to talk. They asked Freeman, tell us about the things that you did that you liked. And you could tell that he didn't really want to spend time. Like he's in a mood like it's not about what we did well. This is about getting better. And he just comes back to the message again.
Yep.
And I think this is leadership. I think moments like this, again, this is when you need a strong leader, and I think the program has one. And so I'm going to stay as upbeat as I can, being 0-2. Now we find ourselves ranked at 0-2, which that says something right there. In the coaches poll, we're 21st at 0-2. So, here's a team that I didn't really believe in at the start of the year. Clemson, they find themselves 1-2 and haven't played well really yet. And Clemson drops out of the rankings altogether. But as you look at, there's some teams, it's early in the season. Is Illinois really the 9th best team in the country? Is Florida State really 7th? These things will play. Iowa State at 12. These things will play out, and we'll find out who's for real and who's not. But, there's a lot of teams. IU's at 19, Georgia Tech looked pretty good. Georgia Tech comes in at 18th. So it'll be interesting to see the 12 teams ultimately that are left standing at the end. And I'm going to hope that 10-2 Notre Dame is one of those.
Yeah, I do think this will be the first year that we see a 3-loss team in there. I don't know why, but I just think that college football is in a weird state right now. A lot of teams, Texas, for example, we thought they were going to be dominant, and they haven't even shown it yet. And they played a UTEP team that, quite honestly, doesn't even match up on paper, and struggled a bit. So it's going to be that kind of year. I think there's going to be quite a few upsets throughout the entire year, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if for the first time we've got a 3-loss team in that 12-team playoff.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, when that might happen, there's just so much left to go. Some interesting games this week: Florida, Miami, Illinois Indiana, right? And so that will
Yeah.
that'll be one to keep an eye on. And I just not a lot of great matchups yet this week, but it's getting more interesting, right? The deeper we get. So, all right, we're gonna wrap it up there. We'll be back Thursday. Another Coach Freeman press conference on Thursday. We'll come back and make some predictions for the Purdue game. Until then, for Mike Brammer, I'm Mike Sullivan. We'll see you next time on Dome and Domer.